We're calling to order this meeting of the airport board. We had a closed session, and we have no reportable action from that closed session. So let's do our Pledge of Allegiance. And who's not chewing? Greg, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Horvath.
Here.
Director Hetherington.
Here.
Director Odette.
Here.
Director Rolfe.
Here.
And Director Diamond.
Here. Do we have any special orders of business? No special order of business. Modifications to the agenda.
I have two modifications to the agenda, three actually. The first one is I'd like to pull consent item number 4, AB 2561, for discussion. And then I'd also like to pull item number 6, GSX Public Charter Operating Agreement. We currently don't have a final draft for the board to review, so I'd like to pull that until a future date when we have a final draft for the board to review. And agenda item number 8, airport office building. We currently have a lot of public feedback on that, and we'd like more time to consider that feedback before we bring that to the board for discussion.
Okay. Any board objections to any of these items? Okay, we will pull them. And now it's time for public comment. If you have a public comment on anything that is not on our agenda tonight, step up to the microphone and state your name if you'd like to, and you got 3 minutes.
My name's Brent Collinson, and if you bear with me, this will relate back to airport matters. I have a rental unit kind of across the street, and I was called one evening while I was at Music in the Park by somebody because the tenant there was having medical issues, and his dog was out running around. They got it. This person got the dog and called me, and I said, I'm at Music in the Park. You know, can you do something? He said, yeah. They knocked on the door. They rang the doorbell. They took the dog in and kept the dog for a while. Called me back later and said, yeah, we tracked him down. The dog's back with the owner. And that was like an hour and a half of their time working on it. And that person is an employee of the district, and I just thought they should be recognized, and it was David Van Quest.
Oh,
And
yay.
I will get a cookie.
Thank you for that, Brett. Do we have any other public comment? All right, seeing no public comment, we'll close that, and we will go to agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda, or excuse me, the consent agenda without number 4?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on consent before we go there? No public comment on. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. And then we'll go into action items now. We'll start with
No, we're gonna do this.
Number 4 before we do action.
but number 4 is an action item. I was just told make that the first action item. So the first action item tonight is AB 2561.
Yeah, and I apologize. It is technically a discussion item just because there is
Okay.
an action item. And
Sure.
I can turn it over to Rob here in a second to kind of, provide any comments he'd like. But just to set the stage, so this is a new requirement as discussed in the staff report. And the requirement is that the board receive an update on vacancies prior to approval of the annual budget. So that's included in your packet. And the reason it was pulled off of consent is that needs to happen at a public hearing. And so it just needs to be part of a discussion item. Thank you.
And if I can, I'll turn it over to our director, our HR manager and district clerk, Lauren, who prepared this staff report and is prepared to talk about this. Thank you.
Thanks. AB 2561 was approved September of 2024 and signed by the governor and became effective January 1st, 2025. And this Assembly bill directs all public agencies who have to adhere to the Myers-Millis-Brown Act to provide an annual report to their governing body on the status of their vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts. This is essentially to provide you information about the vacancies that we have, and the state wants to align. If there's quite a few vacancies, it could inhibit the district from providing essential services to their constituencies. This report reviews data from 2024. We had 4 vacancies in 2024. 2 were due to retirements. 1 was due to a newly added budgeted position, and the other was due to involuntary separation. I added some tables that included just our process for recruitment. So when we have these vacancies, they occur, I meet with our hiring managers and we discuss the plan as far as what the position is like. Do we need to recruit again? Review the job description, have a hiring plan, and then we set forth a job vacancy announcement and recruit out into the public. We also decide where we want to place those job announcements, either locally or broader based in the region, depending on the type of position it is. We did that last year, and we had 4, and the calendar days to hire ranged from 61 days to 20 days. Our IT noise technician position, which was the newly budgeted position, had about a 20-day from job posting to offer made, and our director of operations and maintenance was the longest of about 61 days from posting to hire. Our recruitment statistics for 2024, we averaged about 11 and a half job applications per posting. The most application we received was about 18 applications, and we held 5 interview panels. One position held 2 rounds, and then the rest just 1 panel at a time. We interviewed 46 candidates, and our average days to hire was 43.75 days. Part of the Assembly bill, we also have to review our efforts to try to retain our current employees. And I had listed many of the items that we offer, varying from our participation in the Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, all the way down to how we match many of our 457B and our 100% paid insurance benefits, which is, I would say, out of the most highly surprised our applicants see that we provide 100% of our employee monthly premiums. A lot of people think we're joking, but it is a huge draw on top of our fringe that we offer, and highly supported by our current staff. We also do an annual holiday party. We have gone to Reno Aces games and held employee barbecues. Our departments themselves also do activities to help build team building all on their own as well. We are going to be reporting on this on an annual basis. It is my hope to report on this sooner in the year next year, so the data isn't quite so old. And so as long as we review it before an approved budget, we meet the compliance requirements for this report. And that's it. And we just have to take public comment if there's any public comment on it. And then this just gets filed away for the record. And I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Greg, any questions? Kat?
No questions.
Over here. Any public comment on this item? Do we have a motion to approve the AB 2561 local agencies vacancy report?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
The recommended action is to approve the final budget as presented in our previous meeting for the fiscal year 2020-26. In the packet, the regular board packet, is the 26 budget file, which includes a summary budget, detailed budget, backup. We had our first board budget workshop in September on the 24th. Recommended changes were made. Final presentation was made earlier today, October 22nd. Any required changes from that meeting I would have presented now, and there were no changes from that meeting.
Any board questions?
I move to approve the proposed operating capital and reserve budgets for the fiscal year 2026 as presented.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like it's-
What?
I was just saying, Greg and I seem to be,
Okay, the motion carries. Thanks for your work on that, Liza.
Yeah.
Great job. Great job on that. Item number 7, 2026 Truckee Tahoe Airport Air Show and Family Festival.
Thank you, I'll take that. Rob Etner, General Manager. In the staff report, I'll just review briefly. This is a discussion item here today, looking for any further board guidance. We've been working with the previous air show committee lead, David Love, along with a contract organization called Schultz Air Shows that produces air shows across the country on a regular basis as a business, along with various nonprofits and volunteer groups here locally, about bringing this collaborative group together for producing a 2026 air show in June, on June 20th. The current plan is, as in budget was just approved, is roughly a $300,000 budget, which is similar to past years. And it's a series of meetings that will take place over the next several months in order to build all the details associated with that air show, to put on that one-day air show here at the Truckee Tahoe Airport. That is the current plan that's been worked on and devised. There's a lot of details that still need to be worked out. I'm looking for board feedback or public discussion on bringing that all together, and if that meets the desires of the board. And the direction of the board was to produce an air show for 2026, and is what this is working towards. And that's all I have as far as an update with the staff report.
Okay, clarifying questions? Teresa, anything from you?
Can I see the rest of that? One? No, not that part, actually. I wanted to see the bullet points. Yeah. Who's not there that was there? There was a service group that was there.
Optimist.
Yeah, did they bail?
I'm still working with the lead, Dave Love, about what other nonprofits that he has worked with in the past that have signed up to do this yet. I haven't got confirmation yet from that group.
So we have two options? To contract or to do it in-house, or is it some hybrid?
My recommendation at this point is to do a hybrid between contracting with the professional firm and our local volunteer groups and staff in order to produce the air show.
Okay. I don't really have any other questions. I don't
Okay.
generally go because, I have a fear of flying. So I don't know what we're gaining or what we're losing by doing that.
Mary?
no questions.
Kat? Greg? The only question I've got is also on the volunteer side. Do you feel like we have adequate volunteer options to supplement the time that staff will take for this, or is there a concern?
No, it's a great question. I think working with groups like Civil Air Patrol, I see Maggie here today from Civil Air Patrol. We've had some discussions about expanding different organization's role, like the Civil Air Patrol, to bring more volunteers to bear as part of a training evolution for the Civil Air Patrol and perhaps the JROTC, and then finding some other local groups that have been traditionally involved in airport-type operations like SWEP that is doing things in the community and doing things here at the airport. There's a art show here tonight, actually, at the airport that we're going to adjourn to later. To bring those other groups in that have been associated around the air show, but maybe elevate their role and participation in it. And those are groups, nonprofits, most of them, that are interested in playing a greater role in the air show. So I feel pretty confident at this point that we can build a pretty elaborate coalition of folks that are airport-centric to help support an air show for 2026.
Okay. Before we go to discussion, do we have any public comment on the air show? No public comment on the air show. Any board comments? Greg, what do you think?
I mean, this is a really broad statement, but I just feel like there's a certain level of concern around just change management. And I guess maybe this might have been better a moment before, but I guess what are the biggest roadblocks that you see to this happening? My biggest concern with this conversation is we've kicked it down the road for good reasons, but there's a decent amount of change that will be happening with it happening this next year. So you feel confident in that plan? Are there things you're concerned about? How does that look?
Yeah, that's a great question. It just looks different, absolutely. And I think anytime you're bringing in a new entity or entities, it's going to take a lot more effort to organize and discuss that change and what the plan is. And that is going to be on staff to lean into that to help facilitate that going forward, particularly bringing a professional contractor in here. I feel really confident in my conversations with that organization that they are really well suited and very professional and do this a lot with organizations like ours that help bring in and organize an air show and all the components that are associated with it. Of course, we're going to have to play a lead role in that as well with the management team here. But I do feel good about it, particularly this early in the process. Typically, we don't get going with the air show with the previous formation of it until after the new year timeframe. So getting going this time of year, I feel a lot better about the components of change in this in order to still iron out the bumps that might come with change. So
Okay.
great question.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it for me.
What you thinking, Kat?
I'm thinking about how it has been set up in the past, where we have 3 primary nonprofits that are running different parts of the air show and the compensation that they get from that. Is there any discussion or thought about compensation for this group of volunteers? It looks different. It's I like that it's broader and seems robust. And I know Maggie's guys have done this like twice already, haven't you, with air shows, much bigger air shows?
Yes.
So I think we've got some good folks coming in to help. And
Right.
I don't know if that has been part of a discussion.
So far, we haven't discussed financial reimbursement for volunteers, but I think that those are coming conversations after today to talk about perhaps instead of 3 core nonprofits, it'll be more like 6 perhaps in associated compensation around their support, their labor, their support with the air show and agreements that are associated with that.
Okay.
We haven't talked about dollar figures yet, but I think that is roughly built into the budget at the same levels as before, just spread across more organizations.
Okay.
Mary?
No questions.
Or no comments?
No comment.
I mean, for me, we've talked for a long time about reinventing the air show, doing something a little bit different, and I think this is the first time we're truly tackling that. So I think that's a good opportunity for us to see how that goes. And then just kudos to Vince and to staff when that second part of the apron went south and had to be redone. Had that not been redone, there would be no air show next year. So congratulations on making that happen so quickly. getting that fixed up. Do you have the direction that you need from the board on this?
I do, unless there's additional feedback, but what I hear today is that this sounds like a good plan to move forward with, and there's a lot of details to work out, but it's meeting your objectives in order to execute an air show for next year, and it'll look like an air show, but the components that organize it will look a little differently.
Okay, great. We took out the office. So on the next item, the TTAD vacant property on Soaring Way, I have a conflict. I'm under contract with the town of Truckee, and the town of Truckee has shown interest in this property, so I have to recuse myself on this discussion and turn it over to our VP, Mary Hetherington. If somebody could text me when it's time for me to come back, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So who's teeing this up? You, Rob?
Yes, ma'am, I will do that. So this agenda item, number 9, is Truckee Tahoe Airport District vacant property on Soaring Way. We have some property, approximately 7 acres. You'll see in the photo on the screen here in the staff report. That's not exact, but we've had interest expressed from different organizations about development potential of this vacant property. So we thought it was about time to bring this to the board as a discussion item and talk about what's involved in developing this vacant property. As discussed in the staff report, I'm looking for 2 primary types of feedback today. If the board, I know we don't have all the detailed information exact in this staff report, but at a very high level, if we're going to develop these properties, there's 2 basic approaches to it. Depending on who the entity is we want to work with. It's essentially we could surplus land, essentially sell it at fair market value. Is one approach, either the whole 7 acres or chopped up portions of that, or we could long-term lease the property, the whole thing or portions of the 7 acres, based on interest that's in the community here, for private development or for public use. There are 2 basic options that you see here, 2 primary options. The land is currently part of the airport district. The FAA has a zoning essentially for the airport district associated with that. It's on our airport layout plan. But it is property that was bought with local money here at the airport district, not federal money, so it gives us more flexibility in how we treat that land in the future. That doesn't necessarily need to meet all the criteria of FAA use of the land, but there are some criteria about the use of the land the FAA is still involved with, and that's some of the backup documentation you see with the staff report. But let me stop my comments there and see if there's board questions on the staff report or the backup materials that I could further answer.
Do you want to have any questions?
Yeah.
Teresa?
How did this come about? Why is this in our agenda tonight?
Given the interest that we've had across 3 different organizations now, each of those organizations was interested in making some progress on what do we do as next steps to do something with that land. I thought the appropriate next step would be holding a discussion item with the board to get some general direction of what the board might think of either selling the land, surplusing the land, or long-term leasing the land. What if you had strong thoughts about the development of that land, or what type of things might be developed on the land? If not, then I'll move forward with the process to seek who is more interested in it immediately.
Can you share with us who those entities are?
There's a public entity. I see some folks here tonight from the town of Truckee that are interested in developing that land. There is a private organization that's interested in putting some housing on that land. And there's another private organization that's potentially interested in the development of a school-type operation on that land, public-private.
Okay,
Okay,
Clarifying questions, I'm done.
okay. Kat, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Greg?
Rob, you're just looking for general guidance on if we have where we all land on a lease versus surplus versus sell.
That's the core,
Core
question I
question.
have,
Yeah.
knowing that you don't have all the details associated with that, but in general, as a perspective, when it comes to airport revenue, airport property, and disposing of property or long-term leasing property, it's a revenue stream for the airport and meets the FAA criteria of getting airport revenue from either sale or long-term lease of land. I don't know if the board has strong preferences about one approach versus the other without getting into the legal details of the benefits of one over the other. From a FAA and airport district perspective, they both are supportable methodologies of developing the land.
I have a
No
comment.
further questions?
Something new?
Well,
It triggers thoughts.
yeah, it does.
Yes.
So there was some discussion about,
Questions?
discussion about a possibility of an evacuation center? Is that what we're talking about?
I have not heard
Bill-
that, no.
I think that's what David
I've
told me.
I've heard a lot of whispers
Okay.
about what this land might be
Oh,
used
I
for
see.
that
Okay.
do not get included in
I thought
Rob's
it was,
list.
I thought it was on
Yeah.
the list.
Those are the topics I mentioned to Teresa that have come to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard
Yeah.
rumors of other
Oh, I
ideas.
see.
but
Okay.
Those are the ones that have landed on my
And I've
desk.
to-
heard many
it's
others not in
hard
this
to-
setting.
But at some point, I feel like maybe it was the last meeting when there was some discussion about rezoning it. I mean, like about selling it off so that part of it was not on airport property anymore.
I don't know, we may have some,
If the town of Truckee wanted it,
there
for
may be
instance.
some public comment from the town of Truckee's perspective of their interest in it that may give some, I'll let them speak for that. It is zoned, it's in the county, not in the town of Truckee.
Right.
If we were to work with the town with their interest in that land, they probably have particular desires about what category that land might sit in. They might want to rezone that to put it within their jurisdiction of the town. Mary, you mind if Jen, the town manager, has a couple comments to add, or you want to wait to do that?
I'd like to wait a moment
Okay.
because I think we're still asking questions of you.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I
if,
think I would defer to the town to maybe clarify some of the potential desires around that.
but as far as leasing versus selling, if we lease the land, is it the same kind of deal where we still own the land, somebody builds and owns the building, but then it reverts to us after a certain amount of time? Is that, I mean, that's how we've talked about hangars.
That's essentially my understanding. Josh, maybe you can.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, that would be the assumption, but that would be part of the negotiated deal.
correct, okay.
So that's a basic concept of a long-term lease, 20, 30 years. I've seen in California up to 50 years. I don't know what the exact, right length of time is technically from a legal perspective, but for most of my studies, 20, 30 years, typical long-term lease for something where another entity would actually pay to build the infrastructure, much like the Clear Capital building that we have here, the lift building now.
And they would be responsible for maintenance and all
That'd be
that?
part of the negotiation of who would maintain the facility. It would determine the long-term lease rates based on who's maintaining different things.
Okay.
Sure, Jeff.
I have,
And just to add, from an FAA perspective, while we can sell or lease, the FAA prefers that airport sponsors lease land, because if it's sold and 30 years from now, whoever developed the land sells it to an entity that is no longer, that puts tension against the airport, the FAA's position is for airports, generally speaking, to try to keep the land, lease it so that the airport sponsor controls development more closely around the airport property.
Okay,
So FYI,
Yeah.
we can still do whatever we want, but an FAA perspective is to try airport sponsor control the land to the maximum extent possible.
Do you have any recent examples on what those types of conflicts
In the
have looked like?
PowerPoint that's attached, there's some examples of types of uses of land and that are in there that it talks about that the FAA sees as more favorable versus things that they do not like to see for land uses that is airport property that are in conflict with the airport itself. And there were some examples way in the back of that PowerPoint presentation.
Do you know which, is that like 9E on the tabs? Because it's not at the bottom of this doc.
It's not in the, Lauren, do you remember what tab it was? Yep.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 9D. Thank you. It's a little further down, yeah.
I think it was two
Further,
up.
yep.
Try slide 10,
Yeah, I think it was higher.
10 in the presentation,
Page, yeah.
page 10.
Prohibited.
That's money.
Yeah.
Revenue, that's revenue. Prohibited uses.
I mean, it feels like a gray area, right? These are all more clear guidelines on revenue usage, but it's sort of like, don't sell this because we don't want to have this conflict in the future.
Correct, right.
But at that point that the conflict exists, the FAA's authority is removed now because they don't own the land. Or,
Technically true.
yeah, right.
So I have a question. So on the zoning map, it's currently zoned M1-SP. Is that correct? And M1, I assume, means manufacturing, SP, special. Do we know what those mean?
I don't have the codes with me from the county.
Okay. Then the other question is RFPing. I mean, you've been approached. We've all heard rumors, but wouldn't we want to RFP to see if there's other people out there and what sort of parcels folks would want? And so we could compare an apple to a watermelon. But we have to go through, anytime we enter a lease off on the field, don't we have to go through, I'm wondering, do we have to go through an RFP process? And that might be a Josh question.
It definitely is a Josh question. I would preface it with, as we explore interest in this, and we do have there is a call out for public entities to direct negotiate with, both in our own airport rules and with the FAA rules in California as well, where we could directly work with another public entity for direct negotiations for property development or sale or
So
disposal.
that's with other public agencies.
Correct,
But if
only for
some
public
of-
agencies, right.
Some of these were private.
The other ones are all private, right?
Yeah, for non-public transfers, we likely would need to do a public process to open it up for interested parties and then move forward.
And so then, in that process, how would we compare those apples to watermelon?
So, go ahead.
You know, you get what I'm-
Irregardless, it has to be sold or leased at fair market value, whether it's public entity or private, either way.
If it's sold, but if it's
Well,
leased.
lease as well, it needs to be fair market value for lease.
Okay,
Right.
so,
And the other nuance is the intersection between the federal FAA restrictions that Rob mentioned, but then also some of the California surplus land rules, which are included in your packet. The short answer, it would be pretty complicated, but, you know, there would be, of course, the restriction that Rob mentioned.
so the California surplus, which is the bigger overlay,
FAA.
regulatory overlay?
FAA, the California stuff is more procedural in this case,
Okay.
given where we think we have exemptions.
Okay, 'Cause it would-
Airport has certain exemptions in California for that disposal of land, right?
Okay. Any other?
Questions?
Yeah, you have more questions? Go
I
ahead.
haven't had any yet.
Yeah, you did.
No. 7 acres, can we subdivide it at all?
We can, right, that's just the rough area. The actual acreage as recorded is actually a bigger parcel. I just highlighted what that area is that's undeveloped so far that was essentially not adjacent to the airport or the ramp. There is an area that's outside of that red area that you see just to the high end of that is undeveloped as well, but that's ramp adjacent and not an area we're talking about with any of the entities that have approached us for development. That's something we probably reserve for the future of something that might look more like an direct aviation use since it's adjacent to the ramp.
You're looking for direction. Mine would be to lease it, just personally, rather than sell it, and to keep it for public use in whatever way we can, and maybe cut it in half or in thirds to serve as many as we can.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Well, first we're doing
We
questions,
need
then
public
we'll do.
comment, yeah.
No questions.
Rob, how much, I mean, I've tried to look at some maps, but how much land on airport property fits this same description of non-aeronautically zoned? It's not in our plans to develop on it. Like, I was looking at a map, it looked like the parcel just across Soaring Way also fit into that same category. Do you have a ballpark? Right, we're talking about this 7 acres because it's a nice clean rectangle,
Right.
but there's a few more from what I can tell.
The only other property on the airport, on this side of the airport, that's similar to this type of property, that's adjacent to developed areas, road infrastructure, those kind of things, is probably about 10 or 15 acres up off the into the other side of the executive hangars that we have here in that area.
Yep.
Would be the only other forested but close to developed areas or infrastructure.
Okay.
The other flat areas at the airport don't have infrastructure anywhere close to them like these do. So I think about those properties differently because they're not connected to
more infill.
power, water,
Yeah.
or sewer or anything like that. The other side of the airport doesn't have any of the facility infrastructure that this side of the airport does.
Yeah.
Right.
And then second question, I know you're asking for a fairly narrow feedback on this, just how are we leaning, lease, sell, et cetera. But, I mean, would it not be your thought that this bigger conversation might fit more into strategic planning on what we may or may want to do with 15 acres of land?
Yeah,
Seems like what we do with our land seems like a pretty big picture decision.
Agreed. I think just coming out of a strategic plan this year.
I know, it's
and
like it
having
feels
that,
far away.
And we didn't really
Yeah.
tackle land development for the future in that process. I think there definitely is room for a larger conversation as a separate engagement around land use here. I think about this particular area is a little more narrow, given its development potential that's different than the other property that takes a lot more infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
more
and that-
aviation related.
That question isn't like a how do we push this off 12 months? It's just trying to give it,
Right,
trying to right size the conversation, I guess.
sure.
That's it from me, Mary. Thank you.
okay. Any other questions? So then we'll go to public comment.
Oh, it's already on. You guys are so nice. We make people turn it on. And you give a nice little smile card up here, so thank you. My name's Jen Calloway. I'm the town manager in Truckee, and maybe you can help answer some of the questions. I did approach Rob a few months ago and inquired about interest in talking about that piece of property. Our interest is planning for a future public safety facility, and perhaps the evacuation center was mixed up with an emergency operations center.
Yes, I think you're.
So what we have come to realize is we are rapidly outgrowing our current facility, particularly for the police force. You're going to hear about that from some of the leadership at the team. Chief Renfro could not be here tonight, but he sent representation on his behalf. So I think they'll explain that a little bit more. But we don't have a facility for public safety, our police officers, that really meets current standards and current needs, and we don't really have an emergency operations center. And so as we are grappling with how do we respond in emergencies, we set up one of our conference rooms at Town Hall is equipped to be set up as an EOC. It can probably accommodate 30 to 35 people. It means that we cannot reserve that. We used to use it for voting for Nevada County. We can't do that anymore because we can't hold that space with voting machines for extended periods of time in case there's an emergency. There's technology advantages that we need that would be very helpful to help in an emergency response. It would be a facility that's available for all of our special districts and region in any event of an emergency, as well as community training spaces. And then modern police facilities for our officers. So what that would look like, I think, is we would, if there was support for this concept, be able to at least get an appraisal on the property to understand what the value is. If it were transferred to the town, we would need to annex it into the town of Truckee and go through that process with LAFCO and Nevada County. It would be ultimately zoned public facilities to accommodate that. So the value with that would be if the town were to ever sell it, it would go through the surplus property and then potentially be available back to the public agencies, similar to the process you would have to go to. So you have a little bit more control on that, should it go to the town or any other public agency. So that might address one of the concerns and questions that was raised. And I do want to reiterate, or at least mention for the town, we think it's important to be able to buy the property as opposed to leasing. We suspect and have done a little bit of research into grant funding to support specifically an emergency operations center. There's likely going to be available funding for that, but land ownership could be, we don't have enough detail at this point, but could be a contributing factor to being able to receive grants. If you can imagine investing significant funds to build a public safety facility that included an EOC, a granting agency would probably feel uncomfortable about awarding those for a lease that would eventually revert back to another entity. So we would prefer and think there is value in the purchase option if this was something you were willing to consider. Thank you.
Can I ask Jen a follow-up question? Sure. Is that?
Sure.
I look to Mary, Mary looked to Josh. Would that be I hear you loud and clear on the desire to purchase over lease. Would that be a deal breaker?
I suppose it would maybe depend on the terms of the lease. I do think it could be problematic for grants, and I also think if I was sitting on the elected board of the town council, I would be concerned about investing multiple millions of dollars to build a facility that eventually would revert back. This would be the long-term vision for the town. So that would be, I think that would have to be my recommendation as town manager to feel like we're being professionally responsible. And I think that would be the interest of the council.
Could it potentially play out in the details where you're financing and developing a building that has, say, a usable lifetime of X number of years, and you have a lease that is equal to X number of years?
I think that's the only way a lease would work. And so we'd have to talk through that and what that looks like.
Okay.
I should mention the other piece of this. I don't know if you're aware, but out at our courtyard, we have dormitory space. And so during the winter, our snowplow drivers are able to stay there overnight if there's a bad storm and not have to drive. Some of them live about an hour away. We've had NTSA investigators stay there when there's been flight crashes. We've had fire crews stay there when there's fires in the area. And if this space could accommodate that with flight pass, it would be an opportunity to add more of that for any of the crews in the area responding to, even if it's not an activated emergency, but they're in the area responding to emergencies. So another piece of that.
And last question, how many acres are you looking for?
We have not designed a facility, so I think we roughly were envisioning 5-ish acres. With a public safety center, there's a lot of security needs to be considered, so you need some more space for that.
Thank you.
Questions?
Hello, good evening. Truckee Tahoe Airport Board of Directors. My name is James Blattler. I'm the Emergency Services Manager with the town of Truckee, and I'm here to provide a little bit more insight from the Office of Emergency Services perspective to kind of build off of what our town manager shared with you this evening. So really, I'm here to support the sale of this vacant parcel, as the town is an interested party in purchasing this land. I would like to share the benefits that this land could have on our community from an OES standpoint, Office of Emergency Services, should the airport district choose to sell this land and the town purchase it. As you have heard, with the town having interest in this property and using it to build a new public safety center, and which would include a dedicated emergency operations center and provide covered parking spaces and storage areas. From the perspective of my office, the benefits would truly be measurable for this community. The first coming is having that dedicated emergency operations center. So currently the town's EOC, as our town manager explained, is what we call a cold EOC in the industry. And essentially what that means is that it's primarily used for other purposes, but it does have equipment there that could be used to activate it. But it does require significant work during an activation. As many might know, the our EOC is also known as Prosser Room at Town Hall, which is often used by town staff and other community groups for both meetings and events. And so a dedicated EOC really brings two primary advantages. First, remaining in a ready state improves our ability to quickly and efficiently respond to help support an emergency, especially those large-scale emergencies that we are prone to and a risk of here in Truckee, including wildfires, earthquakes, hazmat incidents, large-scale multiple casualty incidents, including an aircraft crash. And second, it would also reduce the impact that utilizing that space has on our community. As was mentioned before, this room had often historically been used as a voting space, but also for public meetings and events. The second benefit would come from additional office space. Our growing OES, Office of Emergency Services at the town, has outgrown the space that we have within the police department. Similarly, the police department staff is growing as well, and so we're kind of coming up against those space issues. But really, the next benefit, the final benefit would come from having this facility having covered spaces. So that currently, there's two really critical resources during an emergency that we have access to. One is a towable power generator, which is often used to help provide sustainable energy for an evacuation shelter or a community resource center during times of an emergency. And there's also an American Red Cross shelter, which I believe is currently parked on Truckee Airport District land as it stands. However, they're both very difficult to access during the wintertime. And it can be difficult to access. It has been difficult to access. There's been times where there's been an evacuation in Placer County that the town was going to help support, and it took hours to dig out the American Red Cross trailer from a huge snowbank to be able to get that out and support that shelter. So having a covered area for these resources, which is really constricted at the town, would improve our ability to quickly help support our community during times of evacuation support. So to close, the sale of this property to the town would provide significant benefits to the entire community, including many of the constituents that are served directly by the Truckee Tahoe Airport District. And thank you for your time this evening.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lisa Madden. I'm a captain with the Truckee Police Department, as you can tell. I'm here to speak in support of the proposed purchase of the airport land to develop a new public safety center. I have a few points to explain the situation at our current police department that make the opportunity for a new public safety campus so exciting for us. Our current police facility has served this community well, but we've simply outgrown it. The building was never designed to accommodate the level of staffing, technology, and operational needs of a police department. We have moved and added walls inside the department in an attempt to accommodate our staff, but the layout options have been exhausted. Space constraints impact everything from evidence storage to officer workstations, briefing areas, training locations, and secure parking. Our current facility also lacks the capacity to support for future growth as Truckee continues to expand, and so does our department. I have heard the men's locker room is at or close to full capacity, but I can't personally confirm that. Historically, the Truckee Police Department has been the first to respond to any airplane emergency due to our close location. We plan to keep this partnership going as the police department will remain near the airport. We look forward to additional training opportunities with airport staff to ensure the safety of everyone involved in these incidents. Another issue we have continued to wrestle with is our vehicle parking area. Truckee's weather presents unique operational challenges for the police department. During weather storms, winter weather, or freezing weather, our vehicles are often exposed to extreme conditions, which have drastically increased our maintenance cost. During inclement weather, our vehicles remain idling due to the need for our windshields to be cleared and not frozen over, our oils and fluids to be temperate, and our equipment to remain running, as you've probably seen our vehicles running out there. A new facility at the proposed site will allow us for inside and heated parking, ensuring our patrol vehicles and equipment are ready to deploy immediately, especially during snow events or emergencies. Additionally, the indoor parking areas will drastically reduce our idling time, which in turn reduces greenhouse gases and our maintenance costs. Another important aspect of our profession is training, which is essential for a police department because it ensures officers are prepared, confident, and capable of responding safely and effectively in any situation. Continuous training strengthens decision-making, builds community trust, and upholds the highest standards of professionalism and accountability. This opportunity allows us to expand our joint training facilities and can incorporate additional training with the fire department, county, emergency operations staff, and other first responders groups, including the airport. We see this project as an exciting opportunity to enhance our community's long-term safety infrastructure, and we look forward to exploring it further with the airport district. Thank you for your time.
Well, you had that time to the minute.
My timing's terrible, so just like throw something at me when I'm getting close, okay? Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for allowing us to come here and speak tonight. My name's Kyle Vickers. I'm a police captain at Truckee PD. You heard from our town manager and my counterparts, Lisa Madden, James Blattler. So I'm here to just kind of tie all of everything what you just heard together and then kind of really kind of paint this picture and this vision of what this facility could be if it does come to fruition. So James mentioned what an EOC is at a really high level and what we are currently lacking for that facility and what we are endeavoring to get. Emergencies know no boundaries. They don't care if you're in a stone's throw in the Nevada County line here at the airport, or if they're at your back runway and now you're in Placer County, or whether you're in the town of Truckee. So when emergencies happen, we all work together to make sure that it comes to a successful conclusion and try to keep people as safe as possible. As Lisa mentioned, you are Nevada County technically, but Truckee PD is your first responders for law enforcement resource. Not very many people, when they call 911, whether they have a fire emergency, EMS, or a law enforcement emergency, can quite literally look out the window and see their response from the time it's dispatched to here. That's a huge benefit for really anybody that lives in the proximity of all of our public safety entities that are quite literally on this same street, but something that we can continue to hold in the future. As we are outgrowing our facility, ideally we would like to stay where we are. We just need a bigger facility. When we've had a long working relationship with the airport, both when responding to unfortunate incidents as they happen, whether it's on the runway or a plane crash somewhere else in town. Also, just supporting events. You guys were talking about the air show here a few items back. We are a part of that public safety planning process, and EOC can be something as simple as a command operations center to support a special event just like that. So with mutual benefits to the airport with a facility like that as well, there's also mutual benefits to the public, right? So being able to have a more operationally ready law enforcement entity, public safety entity, ready to respond at a moment's notice. We all know what winters look like up here. our facility and our law enforcement set up there in terms of just where our vehicles are, like Captain Matt had mentioned, that's a big problem. No one wants to call 911 and have to wait for their officers to dig their vehicles out before they respond to their emergency. Indoor parking would be ideal. So with all of those things in mind, we can build a state-of-the-art facility that is very unique to a mountain town with our climate concerns. There's nothing like that in our region, nowhere around, not in the basin, not as far north or as far south as I know along the Sierras. So what we are building here will truly be state-of-the-art to where people would come here to see what we did and how we did it to emulate it for their own jurisdictions. So we have a real opportunity here to build something state-of-the-art that will benefit our community and our region and be very versatile to support, again, emergencies of any nature, wildfire, snow, man-made law enforcement incidents, supporting large-scale special events with dedicated command post here. The opportunity is endless. We don't have a big, large community gathering training space. That would be something too that we would like to have to benefit our community, again, train our officers, and just have that as an additional resource. Okay, I'm wrapping it up. Thank you guys for your time. I think I've beaten a dead horse, but we're really excited for this opportunity, so thanks for hearing us out.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay, seeing none, are there comments? Wants to,
I mean, they're only looking for guidance on lease versus sell, and I already voiced my opinion.
lease? Okay, Kat, any thoughts?
Yeah, that was really informative. Thank you guys for all the information that I now have. And I think the airport has had a really long and very good relationship with the police department and the town. I totally get what Jen says about lease versus buy, and that makes a lot of sense. I think I'd rather have more information. I mean, I think if something like this were to be built, it's here for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that there's necessarily any problem. I can't foresee the FAA having a big concern with the police department trying to sell the very specialized building. So, you know, I'm on the fence. I really want, I'd like for this to happen for the town. If it makes more sense to sell it, then I think we should really look at that. I think before we had that information, I would say absolutely lease. But this kind of changes the conversation, and maybe we're not quite ready to make that decision because we don't have all of the facts. You know, I'd hate for the town to not be able to get grants because they don't actually own the site. So it's kind of where I am.
Greg, any thoughts?
Yeah, similar to Kat's feeling. I think my initial lean is similar to Teresa's. Like, from a fiduciary duty perspective, it's hard to imagine releasing assets even at a fair market value versus leasing them over the long term. That just doesn't seem in our financial interest. At the same time, we are operating in a fairly unique special district town context, and we want to continue to support that. So there's going to be the devil in the details on, you know, potentially how to make this all work. I feel like we're getting a little bit more, we're trying to talk about lease versus sale, and we're getting very strong argument. Like, there's a great case for a public safety facility. And I don't know how much that's up for debate. Or I guess that did bring up one question. Is there any other facilities or any other land that's possible for this? Or is this like, this is the one shot?
Okay. So long before I came to the town, the original, I think, vision had been to build a police facility of some sort out by the Corp Yard. And there was some discussion.
Out by the where?
The Corporation Yard, by the Humane Society.
Okay.
There's been some discussion about that. Not sure there's actually the right amount of space there, that would work. But it is, in my opinion, and I think if you asked city managers, local government agencies, the relationship between a town manager and the police chief is arguably the most important relationship on the executive leadership team in the town. In the event of a crisis, you need to be physically located in close proximity. The town manager, whoever that may be when this comes to fruition, because this is a long-term plan, needs to be able to go over to the EOC. You're activating the EOC, you're running the EOC based on the guidance and direction and recommendation of the staff and each of the divisions. So that's what actually brought this to the forefront, as we were realizing we do need a plan for a 5 to 7 year-ish plan. We need to start thinking about what that design looks like. We need an EOC sooner than that, but the reality is that's how long it's going to take. The proximity to being across from Town Hall makes this the ideal location. I can't say there's nothing else vacant out there that we could consider,
Understood. Yeah.
but there's a lot of value in that.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah,
How many sports fields can you fit in the extra 2 acres? I'm serious.
15 acres total, not just.
No, there's 7,
Well, there's 7 on
and
this
they want
photo.
5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's 15 acres that fit this.
I'm just saying you might talk me into selling it if you agreed to build fields on the other 2 acres, and how many
That
would
is
that
another
be?
town's dog park
rumored
next to it.
interest in the land.
I can't, you looked at me, so I just popped up. I
Yeah.
can't answer that. I'm not the rec district. We could find that answer out for you.
Yeah, I'm not
Well, and
adamantly opposed to
that's
selling.
where
but-
like I try and tie it back to, and maybe like this is worthwhile of another meeting, where if we've got 15 acres and we're trying to,
Where did we come up with 15?
have a bigger picture plan on, because maybe there's a world where we can get this done. It's a great idea to build the school, maybe not. Maybe on the housing, maybe not. Maybe on sports fields, maybe not. But like actually, instead of looking at this as smaller parcels and kind of a one by one, like what's the bigger picture on land development?
And when you said that, it is a strategic planning we need to talk about. I mean, this has been talked about for years. I mean, the hospital wanted some of our land. The fire districts want some of our land. Nevada County might want some of our land. Placer County might want some of our land. The rec district, right? I mean, if we should be thinking what we want to do. I mean, I'm in a lease viewpoint. That's where I do land, because I think we want to hold control of it. I do think it should be RFP to see what other interests there might be out there. There might be other agencies' interests. And the 40-acre parcel that was traded off could be a parcel that could service other needs that we don't own anymore. So I'm looking at, we need to talk about it, because the other component is if we had a private entity there that was making money and we could make triple net on it, that brings more money into us as revenue. That we should see what other interest is out there. And I really believe strongly we should be RFPing it to find out what that, I don't want to just go into an agreement with one agency. We've all been here when we've been approached
Yeah.
with different things.
But a bigger conversation too, right? Like what you're touching on there around triple net lease to some other private entity, right? Like we're having to make decisions in the gray area of, how do we maximize our revenue
Right.
as a district, and how do we also maximize public good
Use for the
amidst the context that we
And
are
maybe-
operating in. And
maybe-
so a larger discussion would allow us to
Right.
figure out where we want to land in that gray area, because we're not just trying to make as much revenue as possible.
And the other thing is, maybe we're not at RFP stage, maybe we're at RFI interest level,
Sure.
and see what interest is out there, and that then will help inform our strategic discussion. That would be something I would see.
I don't love the RFP process because it becomes the highest bidder.
Well, that's why I'm saying an RFI,
I'm more interested in public agency where we can choose what we want to have out there than RFP, because Rayleigh's might want to buy it and expand, and they just might offer more money. That's why I don't like the
well, that
RFP
becomes the
process.
criteria then. It's like, so
Just to note, our PMCDs that I spent the entire weekend reading, like several times, specifically state that we do not have to choose the highest bidder.
Oh, great.
I would tell you what section, but it's been 3 days.
I just read them too, and they are, yeah. There is another aspect to that. Anyway, so going forward from here, how
do we wrap this up for you?
Are we giving you enough direction to say, we need more information? I mean,
Well,
Here's what I'm hearing, if I can, is that over the next couple of months, you'd like to have a special meeting talking about land, what's available for developing, that you're interested in developing, sale or lease, and identifying an RFI process. Once we identify the land that we'd want to consider, requests for information, for proposals essentially for that land, interest, and then having subsequent discussions from there about what makes the most sense. Is it a public facility use of that land? Is it a private use? Is it another public agency as an idea about things? So that's kind of what I'm hearing. You would like to have a higher level of conversation about what land do we have that we want to talk about, surplusing, leasing, et cetera, and then what process we would go through to actually solicit interest in that.
makes sense to me.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Rob.
Okay.
Okay.
You got that, Joe?
Is it appropriate to ask the board president to come back in now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all for attending on this. Yeah.
I guess the other aspect of that too is,
We just bought him a fence.
For anybody who wants, we're gonna do a ribbon cutting.
well, yeah, the fence.
Just bought him a fence.
I know, I brought that. Yeah, in the hired, yeah. Okay. So,
Wait for David.
I believe when David comes in, we're going to take a short break to do a ribbon cutting ceremony for apron A2.
Okay.
But I'll let him initiate that. That's consistency there.
And predictability.
Do you want Mary to? Yeah. Mary, you might adjourn us. You adjourn us for 15 minutes.
Okay, we're adjourned for 15 minutes.
We're adjourned.
Convene this meeting here. Item 10, board committee assignments and ad hoc committee reports. Lauren, do you want to, oh, Rob's back, but Lauren, do you want to update us on the workforce housing?
Yeah, we did not have a meeting in October. Our next meeting is November.
Okay, any questions for Lauren?
No.
River Revitalization Steering Committee.
There were no R2OC meetings last month. I believe R2OC will likely make a presentation to Town Council within the next 4 to 6 weeks to update on the 3 catalyst sites, but it's not on any agenda yet.
Okay, any questions for Jeff? No. Climate transformation.
We concluded strategic planning a few weeks ago. It was a productive session. I think there's some high-level takeaways. There's going to be some requests coming to partner members for funding in the next year, but there's a big push to become self-funded in the year following. They're making an effort to be a continued hub for advocacy, not really doing lobbying themselves, but helping local orgs keep an eye on legislation and just have awareness on what they might want to lobby for. And then overall, I think we made a big push for just kind of a ROI conversations and evaluations of projects from an ROI perspective. So there's going to be a focus on projects, grants, grant writing support, where the big effort is how do we turn CTA dollars into dollars for the organizations that they support, with a big multiplier being the goal. So productive session. Rob, you wanted to add anything to that?
No, that sounds great. Thanks,
Okay.
Greg.
Yeah. Rob and I unfortunately both missed the actual quarterly meeting 2 weeks ago. I think we both had, I was on the East Coast, Rob was tied up as well, but they had a nice presentation on wildfire. And I looked through the slides, the quarterly meetings have been great so far, so I was bummed to miss that one. And that's
Any
everything from
questions for
CTA.
Greg? No questions for Greg. Act attendance by board directors, Rob?
Just nothing further than the planned agenda for next month that's shown up there. Talk about winter weather normal ahead of our winter operations for snow removal and how it impacts our local hangar tenants and operations here at the airfield. Talking through that at the November ACT meeting, and just if there's volunteers from the board of directors. It's the topic we cover annually to walk through the details of how winter operations work here at the airport. It's different than summer.
Okay, I would like to do that one. If nobody else wants to do that one.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so you and I. Okay, perfect. Any board questions on that?
No.
All right, TNT TMA monthly update.
We have just what's in the report there from Larry Finney.
Okay, anything more from the board on any of those items? Any public comment on any of those items?
Just, the only comment is, it's great that they're getting a shuttle running from Reno, to bring up workforce. That's vehicle miles, and that's, just makes a lot of sense.
Okay, general manager's report.
Thank you. I don't have anything additional from my report. There's just a few highlights of things going on in the region. I will turn it over to any legal updates.
And update this month is just a reminder that the legislative session closed. So we're in the process of going through all the bills that apply to all public agencies to highlight those that are of interest, and we'll likely include a summary of those that are most impactful at our January General Counsel's briefing. Just in case you start seeing it, there were some big changes this year, including new Brown Act requirements that'll apply to certain agencies. Initial review is those requirements won't apply to us as a special district, but will impact other agencies statewide. More information to come.
Okay, questions for Josh? Good. Aviation Community Services?
David Van Quest and I attended the National Business Aviation Association conference last week in Las Vegas. It's the largest business aviation event literally on the planet Earth. The theme of the conference this year was safety. I attended the large safety seminar they had, really good conversation. The takeaway for us is for a general aviation airport, really focused around Part 91 and some Part 135. I think our Fly Safe program, trying to build a forum for some of the smaller flight departments and individual owner-operators. We're doing all the right things of trying to create that learning space. They were pushing the FAA Wings program, particularly for the individual pilots as a way to stay engaged with continuing education, pilot proficiency. David and I also attended the large noise forum that was there, and there were about 60 airports around the U.S. there. They had a panel of 5, and one of the panel speakers, I put it in the report, but it's worth mentioning again, called out to the audience just to let everyone know that David Van Quest from Truckee Tahoe Airport is here, and Truckee and David do an outstanding job, and they're a model to follow. So it was pretty cool for 60 airports around the U.S. that it's twice tonight David gets called out.
Wow.
So
Rockstar.
Rockstar, yeah. I was surprised. I'm not really surprised. I was surprised one of the panel members that I didn't know knew about David.
Way to walk.
Yeah. Under Fly Quiet, nothing significant really for the month. Last month, 4 new households, fewer complaints. September over September, operations are stable year over year. We have 2 Fly Safe events remaining for the year. A little bit different. Later this month, it'll be in Alpha 9. It's going to be on what you can't do with some local pilots that are also aviation mechanics. Working with the Boys and Girls Club, and Mission to Mars is just completed. The hangar revitalization, we've talked about this. The board adopted in December 24, fly once a year, 14 nights annually in your hangar. So we've begun canvassing and sending out notifications to tenants that may not be meeting that criteria. So those notifications have been sent out, and community outreach. It's in the report, but just to highlight, we met, some of the board was there at River View Park. We had 27 community members there. Really good conversation about noise compared to the 6-7 months prior. In my judgment, it was a much more constructive conversation that was not centered around anger and disconcert, and it struck me as more wanting to learn how this fits and seeking to find some understanding. So that's everything for the AVCOM report, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Jeff?
No.
Nope. Okay, finance.
All right, so this report, we're looking at the year-to-date information through September, so the first 9 months of your calendar year. I always start looking at the bottom to see where we're landing first, and right now, our bottom line is showing about $2 million better than budget, and there's a few reasons for that. So just starting with revenue, I won't read through all of this, I'm assuming y'all have, but again, the same story for the fuel revenue. It looks weird based upon how the change in recording that, but the good news is gallons sold are up over last year, up to budget. And then, so we look like we're way under in fuel revenue, and that's because of the change in the reporting, but we are actually up over budget because of ramp fees and landing fees. We're better than budget for both of those. Hangar revenues, that's kind of the same story as last month. We are under budget a little bit based on a couple of those reasons listed there. Other revenues, we are, make sure I don't misstate. It's almost $1.4 million under budget. 1.4 is actually equal to the grant that was budgeted for that we did not take. So there's a couple other things in there. There's interest income. We're pretty close. We're over budget in that by about $30,000. We are under budget. We have a $50,000 revenue budgeted for a sale of the cat loader, I believe it is. And that hasn't happened yet, so the revenue's not showing. We have a budget of 50 against an actual of 0, but then that's offset by the overage with property taxes. We've received more than budgeted. So that other income is right about on budget as a whole. So total revenues, we are at about 16.5 million versus a budget of 19. So again, that's the overall. It's the fuel sales difference in recording, how we record it, and then the grant. So then cost of goods sold comes in and it offsets a lot of that revenue difference because that's way under budget as well. So then, let's see. So this next graph, I wanted to just, this is kind of, it's confusing and it's hard to read because of how, again, the change in the accounting. So I want to dig into this a little bit more for the next presentation. There are a couple of different places in our accounting system where this information is held and it's reported from different sources. And I want to talk to the folks on my team and make sure I'm pulling the right information from the right places and putting the right information together as a presentation. So I want to try to figure out a better way to report what's actually happening because it's very confusing to see with all of the changes. So next month, I'm going to try to, give you guys something a little bit less confusing to look at and a little bit more straightforward. So it's easier to actually see what's happening over last year. So then looking down into expenses, it's all in here. We're under budget with salaries and wages, about $220,000. That is because we've had turnover. We've had unfilled positions for a period of time in several positions, and then unfilled budgeted positions as well. Benefits are under budget. They kind of always are just because of how we budget for them. And I did, it's not reflected in September, but there will be an additional $125,000 posted to the CalPERS expense based upon the part of the catch-up payment that we made. There was a portion from the late part of last year that rolled into this year that I expensed, and then a portion of a payment we made that was booked prepaid. So you'll see that benefits expense increase in October. Let's see, general and administrative operating expenses. It's showing $780,000 under budget. Again, there's a couple of reasons for that. We know about the property insurance. That bill was much less than we expected, and we got a credit back from that payment. The county support bill is about $200,000. We have not paid that yet. That's budgeted for already. And then there are several computer flight data tracking items that I believe are annual payments that we have not been billed for yet. And so I think it's more of a timing situation. So Mike Cook and I, we are gonna, there's 3 or 4 buckets where all of the IT stuff and software get booked. And I want to sort of create a schedule and make sure everything's being booked where it's supposed to be and we're not missing anything and all of that. So there's a lot that goes in there. So he and I are spending some time to get that, organized, at least in my mind. Probably isn't his, but not mine. And then the big part that I left off of this report actually is the community benefit. We're under budget about $1.7 million there based on the strategic initiatives that we've spent so far. So that comes down to before depreciation expense of about $2 million. We have a net income right now of about $8 million versus a budget of about $6 million. And then talking about, if we go back to 2024, the biggest change was in 24, we had in R&M, this shows we were about $3 million under what we've spent so far in 24. And that was because of the hangar damage. Expenses were booked originally to R&M expense. They got moved over to the balance sheet by the end of the year. But they were, at this time last year, they were showing as an expense. So if you're looking at last year compared to this, that's the biggest difference. All right, so then that's sort of the overview on the profit and loss statement for the month, or for the year to date for September. And then this is just a quick snapshot of the capital expenses, the actual to the budgeted amount for capital. One thing I did want to note on here, the entry for the cat loader, that entry, it shows $304,000, but that's the amount of the loan. I need to double check with the auditors that entry was done correctly, because we're spending about $4,000 a month because that's a loan payment every month. That's not a cash outlay. So I'm going to double check that entry is correct, but that was the amount of the loan that was booked. And then down at the bottom of this worksheet, or this page, is the breakout for our investments. We have about 14 million in investments right now. We had, I think it was 1.5 million in the Wells Fargo CDs. 2 of them matured. There were 3 for 500,000. That got moved to the money market, which is making just over 3%. And then Cal Class, I moved a bunch of money from Wells over to the property tax account over there, so that's earning now just over 4% in interest. And then the LAIF remains sort of steady with that amount, and then it's at 4.2%. And then this is just an overview on what's going on in our department. I feel like this could be about 6 pages long. We have a lot of things that we're doing, which we're doing a lot of exciting things. I think we're making a lot of changes. A lot of software stuff we're working with NetSuite. Again, that's a beefcake program that we're not utilizing to its capacity. So things that we're finding that we want to do differently, we're first, of course, reaching to them because we're paying for it already. So let's use it to the maximum that we can. So we're doing a lot of work with them. I know someone asked about Cassell and why we're still paying for that. We just met, our NetSuite rep was in my office last week, and we talked about that. We're paying for this thing that's a data warehouse through NetSuite already. We're not using it yet. I talked to her about if that's the best thing to use. That also seems really beefy for what we need. But she said for what we do need, that's probably their best solution. So we'll start, we have a new person to work with there to get all that information out of Cassell, and then we can turn that off and stop paying that bill, which would be great. Workers' comp, I reached out to a different company for that. We did get, we got an audit back for last year, and it said we owed $35,000 more. And I looked at it, compared to the application, and talked to them. It didn't look right. So we are actually getting a $55,000 credit back from the audit. And so that was kind of frustrating. And then their rep could be more helpful. So I'm just talking to other folks to see what's out there and see if we can get some better rates too. So that's in the works. We got all the banking structure done. Thank you all for that resolution. That's all finished. Lauren and I, we just had a meeting with the health insurance broker, and he brought to the table some options that hadn't been brought to the table in the past few years. So we're looking through those and seeing what the best fit is all around for price and employees. Let's see. Oh, and then ABRM is a software for leasing that nobody seems to be happy with. So that's going away, and we're hoping that we can work with NetSuite and just bring that in there and do billing and receiving of payments. I'm not sure why that wouldn't work, but we're having a training actually tomorrow on that and going through everything there. And then last, our senior accountant, Heather, she attended the CalPERS conference last week in Palm Springs or Palm Desert or something, and she brought back a lot of good information, and one of them was they have a 457 option through them that sounds great, so we're going to explore that going forward. So that's the skinny on what we're doing. And then we added just a couple of graphs in here that again, sort of allocate or show how our total bucket of revenues are allocated in a pie chart, just easier to see, again, with really small font. So that's on my list of things to do, figure that out. And then, so we have the revenue slide here, just the allocation of revenues. And the next one is the allocation of expenses, how those sit in their buckets and what that looks like. And then the next 2 pages, the next page is the summary of what I talked about with the first worksheet. This is just the numbers version of that. Lots of big, bold numbers there. So again, I'm working on the formatting of this and how to make it most pleasing to the eye. So that is the number version of what we already talked about. And then the last slide is just an overview of the balance sheet. I'm doing some work on this, going through all the balance sheet recs, getting those up to date, and making sure everything that's sitting in there is sitting where it should. And the prepaid CalPERS that I should have moved out earlier in the year that should have been moved out, and it wasn't. So I'm just going through all this stuff, making sure this is clean and as it should be, ready for the end of year and audit. So if you have any questions on the balance sheet specifically or the income statement, just let me know. Just shout. can answer.
Any questions for Liza? Greg? Teresa? Greg? I don't think I have any. There's great job coming up to speed on so many
Thank you.
things like that. Do we have any public comment on the management team reports? Okay. We have a public comment.
Just want to make it real brief. Most of you know me, I'm Steve Ingebretson. I'm the new tower manager at the airport here, and glad to be here. Very proud of this. Been here 7.5 years, watched this grow. Very happy with the board, with the decision to get a tower, not only for safety, but also to help out with the noise. That was a big thing, and I'm really happy to say that through the help of Larry, who's now working with you all, he's done a lot, and I'm trying to take over his shoes and keep things going. And Dave Van Quest and others with their input, including the board, we've done a lot that shows the increase in like our runway 2 departures. We've got more pilots that are offering to take 1-1 for departures to help out with noise. It's got to be reflecting on the noise complaints. And I'm really proud of my people. We're working on phraseology of what to say to improve that so the pilots understand better. And I think it's starting to reflect. So just want to take that moment and thank everyone. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Steve.
If I could just add to what Steve said, an attachment to the AVCOM report is the runway utilization over the summer. And so this past summer period was the highest use, with 33% of departures off runway 02, so it's the highest we've ever had, and a 5% decrease of departures off runway 29. That's a huge impact to the entire team, a lot to what Tower's done. I think it's in the first page, Lauren. Yeah, if you, lower left corner, if you can expand it. So the graph you see there is over going back to 2016. The departures off runway 02 dipped during runway construction because we lost the runway for almost 5 months in 22, but huge impact, full team effort. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
And Larry. And David.
Again, third time.
All right, item 12, future agenda priorities and meeting management. Rob?
We'd have to add to our December agenda the board's requirement to appoint a interim president. So we need to add that to our rolling agenda. If I can just roll right into the upcoming meeting, our next scheduled regular meeting is December 2nd? 3rd, thank you. So for that, we have perhaps the beginning of a land use discussion of a larger context. We have a carryover of our GSX agreement, if we have a final draft for the board to review, and a follow-up carryover on the airport office building conversation as well.
All right, any questions from the board?
Just the land use discussion, will that be in December, or is that a workshop coming up in January? Or
I think I just need a little more time on that. I think in December I'll have some initial framing of it to begin laying out a plan and a process.
That might happen in a workshop.
Right, yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any public comment on future agenda priorities? Item 13, staff and board member conference attendance reports.
I did not end up going to the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Conference due to several conflicts, along with the many agenda items that we've covered here today, just preparation for that this past week.
I went.
Where was it at?
The sustainability thing?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the one that was in the North,
About the one-
SAF Conference North America, not the local one, yes. I missed both of those, yeah. I missed both of those. But Vince did attend a Association of California Airport Conference, if you want to, maybe a short blurb on that, Vince.
Evening, board. Went down to the ACA, Association of California Airports, annual conference in South Lake Tahoe, It's got the look and feel of like grassroots solutions to common problems for general aviation, airports, small commercial airports, airports less than hubs. And my biggest takeaway was 90% of the problems that GA airports face throughout California, we are free from. We're well ahead in noise abatement procedures, community outreach, infrastructure, pilot outreach, pilot procedures. We got our tower. So it was an opportunity to see how blessed I was sharing time with the rest of the California airports down there. One of the, if there was a theme, it had to do with the Palisades fire response, the aviation fire response to the Palisades fire last January, and the importance of the role of the general aviation airport serving the first responders, be they county, sheriff, CAL FIRE. So one of the big takeaways was the meaning of helibasing. We're familiar with basing small firefighting units, maybe 3 or 4 of them for spot fires around California to support the effort. But when we see helibasing to do a dedicated fight, it's 50 plus aircraft that show up with a similar size fleet of vehicles, other agencies, media, political visitations, temporary flight restrictions for a couple weeks, 24-hour operations for 10 to 14 days. So I learned that CAL FIRES has a plan for each and every airport, including ours, if they have to descend and set this up. So one of the big takeaways for me was to learn what that plan is for Truckee and think about it early and do some early coordination on that. Not that it's likely to ever happen. These are more rural areas, small urban areas, larger urban areas than ours, but it's still a possibility. Next big takeaway was AB 431 is going to be a requirement for the state to produce an advanced air mobility plan. And that'll define corridors for advanced air mobility. We're talking Joby, Archer, the electric, either piloted or unpiloted, medium-range regional air taxis, if you will. So if we find those air corridors overlap Truckee, it'll be a time to think about big infrastructure changes. We thought about it when we were putting A2 together and there wasn't enough information. This bill will help to define the future for us over the next 10 years with this new technology. SB 661 is being couched as a revenue diversion reformation. Apparently there's a 4% tax levied on SAF or jet fuel that has been misused by the state of California. If this bill passes, those funds will be rediverted back toward aviation. And by my math, it would mean $30,000 coming back to us based on our current SAF consumption here on the field. Some talk about Caltrans grants, nothing really changing there. And I think I'll leave it at that. Any questions for me about ACA?
Questions for Vince? Okay, anybody else from staff? Kat, you want to talk about the Sustainability Summit?
Yeah, I was out at Marta's camp as it has been for the last many years. Lauren was there from the airport. It rained the entire day. And it was great. It was one of the better ones I think that we've been to. A lot of talk about fire and how that works in the region and some of the solutions that have been coming up and collaboration between agencies and anything really exciting.
The theme was resiliency, and so they interviewed resilient entities. The Paradise Rec District was there and talked about their resiliency of coming back from the Camp Fire and a lot of the youth and grant work that they've been able to use to positively impact their youth programs and sports programs in the town of Paradise. The director of that is, he was a speaker, like a motivational speaker, and decided to go into public service. So he was really inspiring to listen and watch too, but I had family that left Paradise because of the fire, so it was good to hear that the town is slowly coming back to life, and the resiliency of our local youth. And they interviewed, it was about 6 teenagers, 2 local teenagers here in Truckee, and 1 from the Washoe tribe, and 2 down in western Nevada County. And that was really interesting to hear too, as well. And keynote speaker was really good too.
Anything else from boards? Any public comment on staff and board member conference attendance reports? Any board member announcements? Our
I
next.
think maybe we
Yeah.
designate October 22nd as David Van Quest Day. That's our resolution.
Yeah, okay. Our next regular board meeting is December 3rd, 4:30 PM in this room. Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody.